Mic check. 1 2 1 2 1 2. What is up, my beautiful people? It's your girl Rosabelle, and welcome. For those of you who are new here, hit that subscribe button, the follow, the like, the share, wherever you see this, wherever you're listening to this. And welcome. Welcome to my mind. Welcome to my feelings. Welcome to my space. I'm in my element. I'm in a space where I like to kick my shoes off and put my feet up, put my robe on, take my pants off, because pants are dumb, and just kick back, relax. I want to unwind from my day, unfold, and unplug.
Happy Monday.
Happy motherfucking Monday.
It's been such a good week.
It is. It's a beautiful day.
It's a beautiful day. Last week was a good week.
Last week was a good week. It was busy, very very busy, but very productive. We got to see an eclipse. We got to enjoy some good weather. We got to enjoy April showers. As y'all know, April showers bring me flowers, and honey, it was showering. But I will say, in these 2 days of showers, like I saw a lot of growth, outside. Got a chance to be outside this past weekend.
I missed outside.
And just really spend time with, loved ones. So it's been a good time.
Yeah. You know I love the rain.
Man, the rain is beautiful, don't get me wrong. But then that by Friday I was like in the office. It's like, dude, it was just nothing to look forward to.
Yeah. I had some clients talking about they can't go outside because it's raining, and I said, when you are not in jail, do you just not go outside when it's raining? Because that's not how life works. You still go outside. You still got to go to work. You still got to whatever you do, right? And they're like, oh, I can't go because it's raining. Boy, get your ass outside.
Right.
It's good for you.
Get into that rain,
honey. Anyway, welcome to the week.
Yeah, man. Welcome to the week. What's
our topic about?
Hey, now. You ask me every week, so I get to ask you.
I do. We're talking about accountability.
Accountability.
Half my damn job.
Man. Half my damn job, half your damn job, and part of mine. Because, I mean, you got to be accountable no matter where you go. But what is accountability?
Well, why don't you tell me what accountability is like at your job?
I mean, accountability at my job, due to working in aerospace, I think that everybody needs to take ownership and responsibility of their piece of the pie, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that looks like your paperwork being correct before it leaves out the cell. That looks like, if you're doing final inspections of parts going out the door, be own your part, and if something goes wrong, that's that accountability. Take accountability for what you do. If something happened at your step, or it got missed at the step before, and somebody got to go back and say, hey, this happened. Oh, you know what, my bad. I didn't realize XYZ. Let me fix it. So I don't know. I think that's what accountability is, because I also got to be accountable. If I mess up something, mess up some paperwork, mess up some numbers, mess up some names, I'm expected to be have to go back and fix that, apologize, make it right, correct it.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe I don't know the true definition of accountability, but I mean that's how I feel that we're accountable at work.
Yeah, I think that most people can say that for their job, because a lot of times our jobs, and I mean lots of aspects of our life, but I think a job is a good way to explain it. You have a certain, task list or whatever it's called where you are, and that's the stuff that you're responsible for. And then there will be certain things that are outside of your realm of responsibility, and those things someone else is accountable for, And I think companies in general kind of try to make that happen so that if something goes wrong, or let's be honest, when something goes wrong, somebody is responsible. And it should be easy to tell who that is, right? In most organizations. Now, I mean, I work with, people.
Mm-hmm.
No one's accountable for, people except themselves. But I think that a lot of times what it comes down to is because of the situation that a lot of my clients are in, because they're in jail, a lot of them are battling with accountability because they're being accused of something that they don't believe that they did. And many of them do end up, getting sentenced or prison time or whatever for that thing and still don't really take accountability, And I'm kind of in a unique spot where I'm not really supposed to talk about their crimes with them because I don't want to risk being called to like a trial or something like that. Mostly because, with the field that I'm in, I would just claim privilege. I'm not going to sit on a stand for anybody. You guys can request my records if you want to, but there isn't anything in there, let's be honest. It's going to be real vague, and it's not going to mean anything to someone who's not a social worker or in the mental health field at all. So it's full of abbreviations and acronyms that no one's going to understand, and that's on purpose. So I think a lot of times I struggle with teaching clients accountability because of their perspective of what happened versus, let's say, like the state or whoever is accusing them of what happened. And I think that everybody can kind of relate to this. There's one person's side of the story, there's another person's side of the story, and then in the middle there's kind of, people say, like, the truth, right? So what I try to explain to my clients is that they have to look at the incident, whatever it is that they're trying to take accountability for, from an objective lens. So objective would mean the facts, no feelings, no perspective, no nothing, right? So you can say like a lot of times, I might have a client say like, oh, she was talking to me crazy, and then I, whatever they did.
Then I cut her head off. No, just...
I've been there. The court doesn't care how she was talking to you. The facts of the matter are the two of you were in, the same vicinity. Having a conversation, whether it was heated or not, is not an objective thing. It's subjective. The other person could have thought it was a normal conversation.
Mm-hmm. That's fair. They could have, yep.
So you were in the same vicinity. You were having a conversation. And then the person, in your instance, grabbed a sharp object and the other person's head is now gone. You know what I mean? Those are the objective facts of the instance. Subjective would be things like, she was talking to me crazy, I was afraid for my life, I thought she might attack my family, I was protecting myself, stuff like that. Those things are subjective, and they don't really have anything to do with what's objective. What's facts are facts. Mm-hmm. Nobody can tell you what this other person was thinking or feeling except for them, mm-hmm. and they don't have a head anymore, so so they can't do that.
They're gone.
They went for a little nap. So I guess when you go to court for stuff like that, the question is more about the objectives to it, right? That's the law. The law is objective. It's not subjective. The court doesn't care how you felt or what you were thinking or how you interpreted the situation. It cares about the facts of it and the facts only. So because of that, I try to teach my clients to be objective when they think about things that they want to be mm-hmm. accountable for, right? Mm-hmm. So there's this really cute picture that I show them all the time, and I actually found it on Facebook, and I downloaded it to my work computer, and it's like this egg that's cracked on a table, mm-hmm. and it says how to take accountability, and the first one would say like, I didn't mean to, it's an accident, and those are crossed out, and the third one says, I broke the egg, and that one's got like a little check mark next to it. Mm-hmm. I broke the egg is a fact. Mm-hmm. I didn't mean to. It was an accident. I'll do better next time. That's not facts, you know?
Okay.
So whatever is going on in the situation, I try to teach people to be accountable for the facts. You know, these are the things that actually happened. Which part of it was you?
So it work. That could be that could go. The paperwork was incorrect. Okay.
Who did that?
Right. Who did
Right?
that? So if I go back to the previous person, we're just gonna say the previous person in the sequence because like the way paperwork is, they each have sequences, right? Sometimes different people are responsible for different sequences. So
Yeah.
if we go back to the person, hey, this paperwork was wrong. Um, that's how they take accountability. I
Right.
messed up the paperwork.
I messed
I
up
will
the
fix the
paperwork.
paperwork.
Right. I messed up the paperwork. That's how it is. You don't go back and ask the person who messed up the paperwork, like, hey man, were you like having a bad day?
Right.
Did you not like this paperwork?
Now, if it's chronic, if it's continuous and it keeps happening,
Yeah.
then that's when we start evaluating. But yeah, no,
Yeah.
nobody's
True
doing
accountability
that.
wouldn't even be like, oh, I didn't know how to do the paperwork.
Right.
Because that's in a way subjective. Right? Because who knows if you know how to do that paperwork or not? Only you. You could be lying for all I know. You know? And that's why the court operates the way that the court operates. And that's why I try to help these guys see accountability through that lens, because I don't want them to go to court and be like, oh, the judge was totally irrational and da 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 da. But the same thing for incidents that happen in their lives, like while they're there. Like a guy gets into a fight with another guy and comes to me and they're like, oh, well, he was talking crazy and da 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 da. No. Because at the end of the day, you're still responsible for your actions. You can't let other people provoke you. You choose your emotions. You choose how you're going to react to things. So yeah, maybe he was provoking you. Maybe he was. But we will never know that. So what's important is, how did you act? What did you physically do? Something that I talk about all the time at work with my guys is, I'm like, you can think things until the freaking cows come home. It does not matter. It's how you act. You can be sitting to yourself all day, I'm going to murder that person. I hate them. They're horrible. Fuck them. I'm going to kill them. Whatever. That's fine. You are never going to get in trouble for doing that. Do it. I don't care. But the first time that you pull a knife on somebody and kill them, bet your sweet butt you're going to be hanging out with me for a long time.
Bet your sweet butt as well.
You're going to be hanging out with me for a while. And we're going to talk about, we don't stab people. That's a no-no. That's accountability, in my opinion. Now, I'm sure, from other perspectives, like, people view it differently. Like like a lawyer might say something different, or maybe like a business owner might say something, or whatever.
Let's just look up the definition. I'm curious.
Accountability.
Yeah, I need to know
the actual definition. I bet it's going to say something to the effect of taking ownership over one's own actions, something of that nature.
So here we go. Let's go to Merriam-Webster.
You fancy.
Accountability. Noun. The quality or state of being accountable, especially an obligation or willingness to accept responsibility or to account for one's actions.
It's almost like this is my job.
Here's an example. Mary Ramsey is the local government accountability reporter for the Charlotte Observer.
So here's a question for you in your line of work. If you have a person who's making a mistake, let's say like multiple times in a row they make the same mistake, and they're not taking accountability for that. They're saying, oh, I didn't know, or I don't know how to do that, or whatever. What does your company do?
Well, our little section of the company, because this company has a lot.
Yeah.
Our little section, what we do is we start by going back to the basics. You know, we don't single one person out. So if we do retraining, it's going to be retraining with the group. Maybe we'll do retraining with the cell leaders first, and then we'll have the cell leaders flow it down.
Yeah.
But again, if it's something that's chronic, then that person might get pulled to the side by whoever is responsible for them, whether it's the production manager or
Yeah.
whoever is responsible for them, to kind of just sit down, talk through it, walk through it. Maybe they need a one over every time they do their paperwork for a while until they understand. Because maybe they don't. You know, some of the things that we do can be a little bit complicated. If they're new, can be a little bit confusing. So we could have something like that where somebody is new, they're in training, and they do just continue to mess up. Maybe nobody's saying anything to them. You know, so they don't really know that they're messing up. Like maybe their direct lead, let's just say, their direct lead isn't saying anything to them, and they just, you know, continue to move it on. But somebody at the end of the line in quality is like, hey man, you messed this up. But their cell leader didn't say that they messed it up. They're not going to believe they messed it up. You know, because they're the person who they take orders from and they directly look to didn't say anything. So, but in that situation, we would start out with kind of like a group training at the top level, right? And kind of let them handle their cell. But if we feel like they're not able to handle that, then somebody else may step in. But we do try to give that responsibility and accountability to our cell leaders.
Yeah.
It's their position.
Yeah. You know what I think is so funny is, you know, we only have 2 clinicians right now, you know, and so a lot of times Ruth Ann will, my boss, for anybody who didn't already know, she will say, you know, like, oh, I'm noticing clinicians are, you know, struggling with this or having this issue. And my coworker and I, we just, you know, we're very honest people, I guess. And both of us will, when it's our fault, a lot of times we'll just, oh, that was me, sorry. You know, and I think that sometimes she feels like she didn't want to call us out, like in front of everybody, you know, and so she doesn't really like that. But I think at the same time, she's also happy that she has very honest people working for her. You know, one of the things that I have always told my boss from the beginning is like, I am the first person to tell on myself. I never ever want her to find out from another person that I did something.
You know how hard it is finding out from somebody else that, you know, like somebody like close to you. Like let's say you found out from somebody else that I don't know, I was spending money on strippers every weekend. I don't know, you know, but I never told you. Like it's kind of weird to find out something like that from somebody else. I'd rather just It's just easier to find out from the person that's actually doing it. You know, it's easier for your boss to find out that you messed something up rather than somebody else way down the line saying, hey, Samantha really messed that up. Like,
well, and all of our stuff is public, not only to the mental health department, but also to the medical department. We share, you know, our records keeping system. So, I mean, how easy would it be for, you know, a nurse to stumble upon something or someone else in medical to stumble and then say to my boss, like, hey, I don't know if you knew this, but 6 months ago, Samantha did this. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, I have one right now that I printed out this morning of a nurse doing something that I really don't think that she should have done. Nothing that's like life-threatening or like unethical, but I don't feel she should have done that the way that she did it. And I printed it out and I gave it to Ruth Ann this morning.
Right.
You know, because I'm like, this is not, no. You know, part of my job is to advocate for people. I think this man should have been advocated for.
And he wasn't.
So, and he was not.
You know, that's okay. It's okay to do that.
Yeah. So, I mean, I also need to mind my P's and Q's if I'm going to be calling other people out too. So here's my question for you guys. Like so you're telling me that you guys have like certain tasks, right, that each little department does. When you receive, like when it's your turn to receive an item and the person before you has already done their part, is it also part of your job to make sure that their part was correct?
100%.
Like to peer review it almost?
Because in my position and in quality, We are the first and the last line of defense before the part goes to a customer.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, they are responsible for checking full traceability, checking that whatever happened has full traceability, everything is complete. That includes paperwork, certifications, blah blah blah.
Mm-hmm.
They're responsible for that. So yeah, it kind of could feel like they're doing a quick overview.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes they may just skim it because again, we do expect it to be done. It's no excuse that if we miss it and we let it go, it's no excuse for that. Because at the end of the day, that's something that we should have caught regardless of who did it, who missed it, who messed it up. Just because of our position. But
what about the person before you? Did they check the person before them? And so on and so forth?
Usually, I'm going to say no. And I'm going to say just due to the difference in knowledge.
Okay.
Because they won't necessarily know what to... I'm not going to say what to look for. But
they don't know the other person's job.
They don't really have that type of mindset to look for those things. Because it's just different in their job.
Yeah.
But I mean, if it's somebody that's in that position that has worked in quality before, they will likely look for it just because it's the way that their mind works.
Yeah.
Thinking like quality takes some time, but it's a thing to think like a quality engineer.
Yeah. I think so. In my position, it's kind of interesting because we read each other's documentation all the time, like me and my coworkers do. And it's because all of our clients are all of our clients, like there's no client that's just Samantha's client, or whoever's client. There's none of that. So I could go see, theoretically, anybody in the jail that I want to. Now I have to have good reason to see them, like they sent a kite, a deputy asked me to see them, something of that nature. But theoretically, I could see anybody in the jail. So for that reason, it's kind of like we review each other all the time.
Okay.
Because when I'm sitting there with a client, like let's say I'm sitting here with, Mr. Smith. As Mr. Smith is telling me kind of what's going on right now that he's been dealing with, I'm at my computer, I am listening to him, but additionally, I'm reading previous documentation on him. So if, let's say he saw Nicole last time, and they talked about like gratitude journaling, for example, and he was not receptive to it when they talked, I need to know that when I'm talking to him, even if it's my first time ever meeting him, because I don't want to say, oh, well, you should try gratitude journaling if it already didn't work out. You know what I mean? Or sometimes I'll look at clients' assessment because it'll have a lot of information in there about them, about like who they are as a person, things that they think are their strengths, any diagnoses they believe that they have, or medications that they've taken in the past, their religion, their sexual orientation. It'll have all that information in it. And so sometimes I'll use that as a way to help them with coping. So for example, if my client was talking about very religious based, like they're very Christian, they like to pray, they read their Bible, etc. I might feel more inclined to say something about like, well, have you spoken to God about this? Or have you tried praying? Whereas if they're not a Christian, I obviously would not say that.
Right, yeah, I mean, you don't want to offend anybody.
Yeah. Or if, let's say they have a religion listed that, like, I'm not familiar with, I may say, like, well, tell me how your spirituality has been helping you cope through this.
Fair, okay.
So like that kind of information is important to know. And let's be honest, there's 700 people in that jail. Even if I did the assessment or I'm the last person that met with them and it was within the last, let's say, week or so, I may not necessarily remember that person and everything that they told me.
That's fair.
Because I probably did 14 assessments that day. Back to back to back to back to back. So it's really hard to remember each and every person. So having that documentation is invaluable. So let's say I'm sitting there with Mr. Smith, right? And I'm looking, and I notice that, let's say my coworker did his assessment, and something's really missing on it, or just it's not painting the picture fully, or even just like a typo. I can shoot a message to her right away on that note and say, hey, this is missing or wrong or whatever. So we can do that, which I think is a good way that we review one another.
That's very helpful.
And I mean, you have to take accountability because our documentation is time stamped. So, like, let's say, for example, she answered the question, is he religious? And she's answered no. It would not only say, that she put no, but it would say the time and date that she put no. And if she changed it to yes, it would say the time and date that she changed it to yes.
Right. Yep.
And etc. If she went back and forth, it would list all of those places and times and all of that. So accountability is kind of built into our system already. So, and the other thing that we do is we do peer reviews. That's what we call them. And that's when 4 of our DAs will get pulled randomly. It could be monthly, it could be weekly, it could be whatever. And it'll be given to the other clinician. And they'll have to go through and read it. They'll have to read all the documentation we did on that person. If we did any paperwork with them where they signed and stuff, they'll have to read and make sure we did our paperwork right. And give notes. Hey, you did a really good job at this part. This piece is maybe missing a little bit. This is unclear. You missed a period or a comma or whatever. All that. And it gets handed off. We see it, but it gets given to our boss. And then additionally, I don't know this for a fact, but I'm pretty sure Ruth Ann has to sign off. I know she has to sign off on all of our documentation. So I'm sure she reads it because she doesn't sign anything she doesn't read.
Man, listen, because I ain't putting my stamp on that. I can't tell you how many times I heard that, but honey, I feel you.
And I do get notes from her sometimes. Sometimes she'll say to me oh, I was reading this assessment and I noticed you didn't recommend this person for psychiatry. Can you tell me your thinking there? They maybe could benefit from mental health medications. And maybe I just didn't clearly document that they didn't want them.
That's fair.
Something of that nature.
Yep.
Or she'll see one and she'll be like, I see that you referred this guy to Thrive, let's say, but he doesn't have any needs that meet the criteria for Thrive. What's going on? And then maybe I would explain, well, he actually did da-da-da-da-da, and she'll say, well, why isn't that documented?
Right. Yeah. Because then I wouldn't have to assume or ask.
So that's kind of how.
Never assume.
Right. But that's kind of how we take accountability as far as our clients go. But I think also because we are, social workers and we're advocating for people, we take responsibility even when maybe it's not, we maybe didn't even know about what was going on, because it is my job to advocate for these clients.
Right. Yeah.
So if there's something wrong, I need to know about it. And sometimes I think maybe deputies or, other staff in the jail might think I'm being a little nosy, let's say.
Okay.
Because I'm always asking, hey, is there anything going on in your pod? Anything that I need to know about? When I walk through the pods, there's always documentation on the counters about, who has visits today and who has court today and who is doing whatever today and stuff like that, And I always look at them on every single pod every single day.
Yeah, because it's good to know. I feel like that makes you a good social worker because you kind of know what's going on, who goes where. And it could help, how you start a conversation or how you talk to people or what you need to talk to people about. If they're leaving or if they're transferring, I'm sure that you want to have a different conversation than if you were just going to see them tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yeah,
or if I have somebody on my list, right, and I know that they have court and it's a trial, let's say, I might want to make sure I get to them before trial. Or I have people who will say to me hey, Miss Samantha, do you think you'd stop by after court? I think it's going to be, a really emotional one for me. And I'll keep those dates on my calendar. Or when I see them, as I'm walking through, I'll say, oh, hey, I thought, Mr. Doe had court on Tuesday. What's going on?
Mm-hmm.
Because
Right.
that kind of stuff does happen.
It does.
Or I'll peek at our system, our kiting system, which is how they send messages to us.
Okay.
Even if I'm not answering them, I'll still read them because I want to know what's going on. Sometimes clients will send us stuff like, hey, my bunkie says he's really struggling, or I saw, these two people get into a fight, or, whatever. Because I want to know those things. Because I can't advocate if I don't know what's going on.
Right.
And in a way, that's kind of the fun part of my job because I get to know all the tea. The people in the jail sometimes, I think, don't understand that I know literally everything that's going on in there.
Do you?
Yeah, like I know who's using drugs. I know who has the contraband. I know all that stuff. And I do tell.
Said, don't PMO because I will tell on you.
I mean, it doesn't matter if you PMO. If you got contraband, I'm telling on you. Safety as a jail is my responsibility, even if I don't know about it.
Yep.
And so, I think people probably think that I'm nosy, but I feel like it's part of my job.
My bad, I was yawning. So let's talk about here's a question that I have is like, how do I say this? He said objective versus subjective.
Right. So we talked a lot about objective. Objective is facts.
What type of accountability do you feel like people normally drift to? Does that make sense?
Yeah. I would say subjective. I think people view life through the lens of their feelings.
Very fair. Okay.
Right?
Yep.
So people see situations through the lens of their feelings. And that's not something that people can really like turn off.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like that's human nature. But I think it's very important to also try to see what actually happened. Because you will never be able to fix something if you're not acknowledging that it could maybe be different than what you thought. You know what I mean? So like, super good example of this. One of my coworkers was always bitching about her daughter doesn't do the dishes well. They're dirty. She says she cleaned them, but they're dirty. And then, like a couple months later, she took her to the eye doctor. Girl needs glasses like crazy. She can't freaking see it.
Well, that's why it was dirty, because she can't see it.
Right, but she truly
believed that she was doing the dishes.
Right, but my coworker's looking at it through the subjective, through the feelings, right? She's lazy, she just doesn't want to, she's, whatever. But really, something else was going on. And the fact of the matter is every single person on this planet has something going on. And that's fine. That's human nature. It is what it is. But you can't take it out on other people and not expect there to be a consequence.
Fair. That's fair.
Period. It may not always be a bad consequence, but every action causes a reaction.
It does.
You can't expect to talk to people any kind of way or act against people in any kind of way and not expect them to do things back to you. So, I think that sometimes people kind of get them confused, subjective and objective. I think we look through life through a subjective lens. However, because it's the way that we feel and because we can't see through other people's lenses, it feels objective to us.
That's fair.
Yeah. That's fine. That's human nature. It's just like recognizing, other people may feel other ways about things. There's no one on this planet who's been through everything that you've been through except you.
So do you have any tips on how people can be more objective with their accountability?
I suggest with my clients, a lot of times something that we'll do is we'll describe a situation, right? And we'll break it down into objective and subjective. So I'll break a piece of paper into 3 pieces, the top half, and then the bottom half I'll split in half again.
Okay.
Vertically. For people who can't see me doing hand things. So the top half of the page will write out what they say happened in the situation. And then the bottom half of the page, half of that will be subjective and the other part will be objective.
Okay.
And we'll split in half. This is what happened subjectively. This is what happened objectively. And then I'll say to them, I'll read them just the objective part. And I'll say to them, for the other person in the situation, how do you think this felt? You know, like what is it that you think they interpreted out of that? And I mean, there's never going to be a right answer. Like you would literally have to ask the other person. There's no other way to know for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, not everybody wants to talk about everything.
That's fair.
So you have to have at least a little bit of assuming, you know. And then I ask them to take accountability for the parts that they controlled. You know, you can only control you. What part of this situation did you control? You know, and take accountability for that. What, in the future, if this situation happens again, which of these things that you can control would you do again? And which things would you maybe choose not to do again? We use this a lot with sobriety, too. You know, let's talk about the situation that got you using again. What was subjective? What was objective? Which of these things are in your control? And then if you had to do it again, because let's be honest, people facing sobriety issues will likely have to face it again. If you have to face it again, what will you do differently? And what will you do the same? Because nobody makes bad choices all the time.
No.
Nobody makes good choices all the time.
No.
And the only way to fix those things is to be prepared for them. To know, these are the things that I did that I'm maybe not so proud of and I don't want to do again.
That's fair. Okay.
Yeah. So that's usually how we go about that. And I think that's kind of similar to what you're saying at your job. Because it sounds like accountability starts with the person who actually did it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they can take accountability for it and they can say, this is what I'm going to do differently in the future. Or, no, I think I did a good job. Let me talk to my supervisor about what I maybe should change. Or, I mean, it could ultimately come to the policy changing.
Right, yeah, and it could. It could be a systemic issue, and it could be something that we need to change about our process or in our process. Maybe what we wrote down doesn't make sense.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's not actually performed that way.
Or maybe it could be viewed differently by different people in different ways.
Yep.
So, I mean, there's all kinds of things that things could be.
It can be.
And the only way to do better next time is to examine the situation, take control of what we can control, but you can't control anything if you're not accountable.
Nope. Can't. I appreciate this piece of advice today. Thanks for talking accountability with me. It's always a grand time. I don't know, being able to talk about things, different topics. Yeah. I think it's always a grand time sitting down and unplugging. I will say that I can't wait for Trivia Week.
It's going to be fun.
You know, y'all gonna have to wait to find out that. Thanks for vibing with us today. Thanks for continuing to tune in. As always, you are worthy. You will always be worthy. Don't let anybody tell you that you ain't worthy, because you can do anything that you put your mind to.
Love you, bye.